Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this second webinar in our series for the Open Business Creators Fund for Women in Business. Today we are talking all about entrepreneurial capabilities in two different areas, understanding who your customers are and creating relationships with them, and then understanding the financial picture for your business as you're starting out and thinking about relevant costs for you and thinking about how to project the revenue to cover those costs and hopefully make a little bit of profit to either take out of the business or reinvest in whatever your mission is. My name is Rob Wilson, and I'm the lead for the Open Business Creators program here at the Open University. And I work with a wide team of people across the OU and outside, including NatWest, who we'll hear from in the second. But first, I will turn over quickly to our good friend Ronke, who is going to talk to us today about understanding your customers. Ronke, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you to the Open University and NatWest for hosting such an impactful incentive supporting women in business. So my name is Ronke May. I'm the founder and director of Ronke May Limited. So I launched my business this year after years of supporting landlords, buyers, tenants across London. Today, I want to share how understanding your ideal customer is one of the key fundamentals to successfully growing a business. So in property, I work with four customer groups. So landlords always want peace of mind. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the renters' rights bill that's coming out. You would need a compliant agent because everything needs to be on board so that the renter is secure in their property, which means that the certain works need to be done, certain certificates need to be given. So a compliant landlords usually want a compliant estate agent, and when it comes to the renters, they want a comfortable place to live. They don't want to be dealing with dodgy landlords that haven't got anything in place, and basically, because to rent in London is very, very expensive. So they want to make sure that they are dealing with a compliant landlord. And then I also deal on the sales side with buyers. So buyers, obviously, they want security and investment growth. So in that as well, I have to make sure that the sellers understand the market. An overpriced property is not going to sell. And obviously, a lot of people that are buying now are first-time buyers. And I'm just going through my slides here for you. Hold on. And then with the sellers. So if anybody's got any questions, please do let me know. I think I'm finished now.
Will do. Ronke, I was wondering if you would talk to us a little bit about how you build relationships with your various customers. What are the kind of approaches that you take there?
So has an estate agent, has an independent estate agent, how it works is if people call in, so via Rightmove, to view properties through me. So when they call in to view, that's when I am able to build a relationship with them. So there's a lot of questions you need to ask about the finances and obviously where they're looking, how important it is. Location is very important for a lot of people. So that's how you build the relationship with the clients that are looking to buy. And it's the same with renters as well. When they call in to my company, I have to obtain quite a lot of details. I mean, taking people out on viewings as well helps me realize what it is that they're looking for as well. So you build relationships that way. And with the landlords and the vendors, what it is that I meet them at their home. So I have to tell them about what's going on with the market. So I need to be very clued up on what's going on with the market. So that will then help them realize sort of what sort of price they need to market the property at. So building relationships, really, I'm always speaking to people. So it's either tenants or landlords, but I'm always speaking to people and building relationships.
And how do you kind of switch between the different types of customers that you have, and does your persona change depending on who you're either selling to or trying to uh, sell for?
Yeah, so it's quite different, because sometimes when you're called in to do a valuation on a property, you're not always going to be speaking to the owner of the property. So it also depends, like a valuation on £1 million property to a valuation on a property under 200,000, where you're meeting the tenant rather than the landlord, is going to be completely different. So sometimes I have to communicate with people via email, because I'm not always going to meet the landlord. The landlord could potentially be abroad, which means that I would need to communicate with them via email.
Okay. And so I understand that you just started your independent business earlier this year. Can you tell us a little bit about what led you to that point, and
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it's
sure.
been like actually setting up a business and kind of making your own way in the industry?
Yeah, it's been so I used to work in 3 different corporate agencies before I made this decision. So I was actually in the corporate world for 20 years. And in that 20 years, I've always worked my way up to senior level. And about a year and a half ago, I looked at everything and I said, you know what, I can do this myself. I can actually do this myself. It was very, very scary, but I sat down, wrote down a plan of what I was going to do, and I executed it. Up to now, things are not perfect, but do you know what? Every day I wake up, it's a new challenge. But just looking on my website and going, wow, I actually did it, makes me feel so happy. Running your business is not easy, but you just need to do it, because things come every single day that is different, that you didn't know about, but it's just learning. It's a learning curve. And then I can't actually believe that next year, April, will be a year that I've been trading, and I just feel like I've just started. So it's been an amazing journey, and it's all about just doing it, really, just doing it. And I'm somebody that is, a lot of people, they look at me and they go, oh my god, this lady's so confident, but there's a lot of things that I actually don't know, although I've got 20 years experience. But what this journey has helped me with is that anything I don't know, I'm learning on the job, and it's my business, so it's definitely worth it.
That's great. And I think your story is similar to others that I've heard before from OU students who have, they've gone out, they've had a career, and they're thinking, now I want to create something of my own. And so it's taking that step out into the unknown of starting your own business. That's
Exactly.
scary sometimes. So I wanted to also ask, you have such a breadth of experience from the corporate world of understanding clients, understanding your customers. You're bringing that into your own business, but entrepreneurship is new for you. So who do
That's
you go
correct.
to for help and support?
So believe it or not, so what it is that in the 20 years that I was in the corporate world, I built so many relationships with investors, developers. I've helped so many people get onto the property ladder. I've helped so many landlords, people that like investors, acquire a lot of properties. So they're no longer accidental landlords. They own multiple properties. And whilst I was a sales lady, I did sales. The letting side, I'm actually learning on the go. I'm learning on the go. I'm
Hmm.
doing courses. So the people it's my network that are really helping me through a lot of stuff. And I do like to read as well, so the reading's helping with the other stuff that I don't know. But I've got a lot of successful landlords around me, the compliant landlords that are helping me with the letting side. So anything
Okay.
I don't quite know, they're actually helping me. So I'm just going to my network and doing a lot of reading. That's what I do. And, I'm always listening to the news because I just want to be a compliant agent. What I don't want to do is fall short of, I don't want to be an agent that hasn't got certain things in place. That's why you'll see, please do follow me on LinkedIn. There's a lot of certificates that I've got, because anything I don't know, I go and read about. So at least I know it.
Great. All right. Have we got any questions from people listening?
If I can ask a question, I think, Ronke, it's interesting that we're in the same sector, because I'm a NatWest Bank manager, but a real estate specialist. But customers contact strategy, do you have one of those?
Sorry?
Customer contact strategy.
Yeah. So as an independent agent, it was very difficult, because the first thing I did was I set up all my social media, right? But what I've noticed is that you're not going to get a lot of customers from social media, but you will do if you are on a platform like Rightmove. So Rightmove costs quite a lot. So for an independent agent, Rightmove was quite expensive for me to, they charge 1,500 per month just to advertise properties on there. But it gives me clients. So if you've got the properties, the clients will come. So I also have I also do a lot of canvassing through a link called Propole. So I
Frozen there a little bit for me.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, let us know if you can hear us or if you reset.
Maybe turn your camera off. Sometimes that helps, doesn't it?
Maddie, maybe you could tell us a little bit about customer contact strategies.
Yeah, I think
and why you asked that question.
Yeah, I think like existing clients, you should really have a robust contact strategy around those, and that'll be the same for Ronca with your landlords, tenants. They're all sort of an active audience to your customer base in various different ways. So if your business does have customers, or even introduces or networks that she talked about, then you just need to make sure that you've got some sort of strategy. I mean, the bank strategy for us is to contact our clients twice a year. So 6 monthly, that's how it's kind of set. It's idealism in my world, but so yeah, it's just kind of, and we get prompts through a CRM system. I know everybody can't afford a CRM system, but effectively you could use diary notes. We can use things like special occasions, birthdays, things that people tell you if they were getting married, that kind of stuff. So don't miss an opportunity to connect with the client in the future at some of those poignant moments, because if you don't connect with your clients, they'll soon forget about you. Whereas if you are contacting them a couple of times a year through it, you could just be a newsletter. It doesn't have to necessarily be a phone call contact, but it just keeps you to the forefront of the mind. So that's what I would sort of say, really.
Nice, thank you. All right, Ronke.
Sorry guys, I'm back. I don't know what happened there.
That's all right. You froze for a second there, but we can hear you
now.
So Maddie has just told us a little bit about why she asked that question about customer contact strategies and just how important it is to maintain some touch points with existing clients at a somewhat regular basis over time.
Right.
Do we have any other questions for Ronke?
So I have a question. Obviously, Ronke, you said you've been in the corporate world for 20 years, and obviously soon you're celebrating your first year running your own business. If you could look back over the last year of when you started your business, is there one piece of advice that you could give women on the call today looking to set up their business that you wish you knew 12 months ago?
Funding. I started with zero. I don't know how I've done it, but funding is very important. So making sure that you have, because the thing is, if I don't sell or let a property, I still need to pay my bills, right? And I think it would have helped if I had a certain amount of money aside. I'm just literally going, I've just been quite lucky actually, because I'm just taking each day as it comes. But I would definitely say you need at least 50K to start a business. I didn't get that. Everybody told me I could get funding, but then when you look into it, they all want you to have some trading history. And I have now, everyone wants to give me funding when they've seen my pipeline. Do you understand? So actually, I would have loved that funding before I started, because a lot of the anxiety was the money. I've had to cut back on certain things that could have helped me push the business forward, but I'm working at it.
I'm glad you said that. It's something that I asked Maddie to speak to us about next. Kind of creating that track record of sales so that you can get funding. It's probably not 50K that you need in all different types of businesses, but likely that you'll need to fund some elements of it yourself as you start out, for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Do we have any other questions for Ron K? All right. Well, thank you for your time, Ron K. Feel free to stay in and have a look at the chat in case somebody brings a question, and maybe you'll find what Maddie has to say about funding and managing your cash flow interesting.
Yeah.
We'll move along now to Maddie Holmes from NatWest. And Maddie, I'll let you go ahead and bring up your slides here. Maddie has been working in business banking for about 10 years now, and on the real estate side of things. So that chimes well with Ron K's experience.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Brilliant.
Over to you.
Worked. Technology is not necessarily my thing, so there you go. I think like if me and Ron Kay had spoke before, you'd think like we'd fed off each other. Like she does property, I'm a property specialist, and she's talking about cash, and now I'm going to talk about cash flow. But we really did not. So good way. Thanks for the segmenting. So during this session, we're going to look at understanding your cash flow, understanding fixed and variable costs, and identify ways you can improve your cash flow. And as a result, you should feel more confident about managing your business cash flow, which Ron Kay has rightly said is quite paramount to people's success. So if you can just think about, everyone on the call, about your current confidence with cash flow, and just sort of rate it for us. If you can add that into the chat, perfect. So I'll just give you a minute or two to just do that for us. And then hopefully at the end, we'll feel a bit different. So we'll just start with that. So has everyone a chance to do that? Perfect. And I don't think we need to be truly confident because, hopefully, if you waited until everything was perfect, you'd probably never launch a business, which is what Ron Kay sort of alluded to. But understanding your business finance, and that isn't just about numbers, it's about power, confidence, and women-led founders succeed because they understand their customers, they understand their business model, and they understand their financial story. And interesting, Ron Kay mentioned 50,000, but if an investor offered you 50,000 tomorrow, how confident would you feel in explaining how you would use it to that investor? And as Robert rightly said, 50,000, it really just depends on the scale of your business. And keeping your costs low at the beginning is a good thing to do. So you could work from home and things like that as you're starting out to keep down your costs. You could use your old PCs, and you don't necessarily have to have everything to go live. So you don't necessarily have to have a website, a social media presence, because if you wait for all those things that, by the way, all cost money, then effectively you might delay starting your business, and therefore, that might not be the right thing to do. In Ron Kay's example, the right move thing is really important, because that is critical to being able to compete with the people in that sector. And as you rightly say, most people will start there, and then it will lead you to the property finder, etc. So understanding the bits that are critical to your business and the costs associated with them is important. So even if you're just starting up, understanding your numbers helps you to make confident business decisions. It helps you to communicate with investors and funders, and we can talk about that. And it also allows you to plan for growth and sustainability. So you'll have a plan of where you want to be. You might want business premises at some point in the future. It'll allow you to see when and when you're going to be able to do that. So it is very important. It isn't fortune telling, it is planning, and it estimates when money is coming in and it goes out so that you can stay ahead. If 2,000 comes in and 2.5 goes out, guess what? You've got a shortfall. No sort of key moment there, but forecasts help you to make decisions and help you to say when you need to save, invest, or fundraise. And we will come on to contingent as well, which Ron Kay talked about. It's hard to run a business without cash. Your cash flow statement can support you to raise funds. It can clearly see what your actual cash position is, and you can review it. If you use forecasts, you can review those as well. You could be really profitable but not able to cover your costs. For example, you may be highly stocked. You could be unprofitable but have enough cash to trade. You could still owe bills and not be paying them and be unprofitable. You can forecast cash flow needs, and you can forecast periods of low cash flow, seasonality, for example. Trends when people will buy certain things from you, when money will flow in. So you can basically have a bit of a snapshot of the future. And the good thing is that you can also review it. So if you make a forecast, you can review how you're doing in line with that. And I would expect you do need to put some expectation in, but you probably dull that down if you were showing an investor, because an investor's going to want to see those results. So you could have a cash flow forecast slightly higher than you would show to your investors, because your investors are going to want to see that you can deliver. And we'll come on to that. The NatWest Bank, and I think also there's quite a lot of information in the Open University course, but if you go on the NatWest website, there's a lot of information for free to customers and non-customers on forecasting your cash flow and managing your cash flow. Any interest in excess cash, well, let's say you might be better investing that in your business, but that's just in there because I couldn't take it out of the slide. So we're going to now toggle between a cash flow forecast and what are variable costs and fixed costs. And variable costs are typically cost of sales. So staff could be in there, but staff could also be a fixed cost. So it depends how you're using those staff. Your own salary will be a fixed cost, rent, utilities, things that each and every month are going to go out regardless of whether you make a sale, are your overheads. And the variable costs are the things that allow you to create that sale. So if you think of it like that, hopefully it will help. Now, when we come to this cash flow, 12 months typically is how it's done. So you're forecasting kind of 12 months ahead. So when you first start a business, I don't really like this, the numbers. So try not to get too hung up in the numbers here, other than the points that I will make about those numbers. Is if you were sort of starting out on month one and you had this £50,000, this lovely amount, you have 50,000 in your bank, and before you can make a sale, depending on your sale, so if your sale is reliant upon stock, so you're a consumer industry, then effectively you've got to stock up, and therefore you've got stock costs. You could have costs for manufacturing, delivery costs, things like that. So things that have effectively got to happen before a sale can take place. You might need some premises, and therefore you would have committed to rent. You'd probably have to commit to that as a commercial lease, you could potentially commit to that for 5 years, so quite a long period of time. Or you could think about hot desking. You could think about working from home, depending how confidential. There's a lot of free hot desking. In fact, me and Cheryl got talking yesterday about the accelerator hubs, and we will come on to what the NatWest have got available in that space in some locations, if that's something that, you know, maybe would suit your business. But it is really about, from day one, in keeping your costs as restricted and as reduced as possible until the revenue starts coming in consistently, at which point then you can consider doing things slightly different. You're always going to control your costs, but actually, you know, you might be able to commit to more. So it's trying to, at the beginning, keep your outgoings as small as possible. Now, what I don't like about this slide is it assumes sales of 30,000 drops to 24, 25. Great, it's showing some drop of sales, but actually it's not showing a lot of growth. So month 1 and month 12 are pretty steady. So what I would expect if you're producing a cash flow forecast for anybody, be that an investor, be that, you know, for yourself, you need to understand, you know, what's behind each of these figures. So some figures will be absolutely straight line, like rent. Yeah, I'm going to pay £1,440. You won't pay that in the north, but you know, you could pay that down in the south. So your rent is an absolute, if you've committed to that, it's a non-negotiable. If you need pensions, you probably wouldn't need to do that for yourself. However, you would have to do that potentially for your employees. But pensions for yourself, you could minimise that at the beginning or not do any of that at the beginning. Salaries. Now, as Ronka said, she set off on day one. I don't know her circumstances. I don't know whether she needed to take an income from the business from month 1. But if you've effectively either, you know, got other sources of income, these are the things that you would probably keep quite minimal at the outgoing. So if you can put aside funds that will allow you to go 3 months, 6 months without a salary from the business, then effectively you're not having to take that from the business. You may still be able to use your capital allowances of 14,000 salary later on towards the end of this 12-month period. So it's just looking at how you take money to keep, as we said, the most cash in the business from day one. Now, stock, we will come on to that in some key ways how you can control some of these figures. But stock, you would have to stock up potentially if you're a consumer business on day one. Even if you're a service business, you might have marketing, mailing, you know, you might want some flyers. There's going to be some costs that are going to be associated with starting that business. So effectively, it might not be stock, but it's going to be something to get the ball rolling into the, you know, into the revenue coming in. So that's basically cash flow. And if I was doing this for an investor, each line I would put some assumptions on paper. So it could be a separate bit of paper. I've assumed sales of, my average, you know, sale is £50. I think I'm going to sell 10. I do some assumptions behind that to show how you thought about it, and also seasonality. So is it coming up to Christmas? Is it a product that people will buy at that time of year? Is it a summer product, ice creams? You know, you've got to kind of think about, are you realistically going to be consistent in your sales from month 1 to month 12? So really sort of think about that as you're doing it. So, and stock, you can eke that out and use it, what you've originally stocked, but actually there's still going to be some ultimate stock in each and every month. Now, when it comes to the figures in this is cash. So this is not what I've committed to this month. This is the time that we pay the bill. So if, for example, you get stock from your supplier and you're lucky enough to get trade terms that mean you don't have to pay your supplier for 3 months, then stock would cost us nothing for 3 months. And so again, it just depends on how you're doing that. So what you've got to think about here is, in this time, in 1 month, what will gone out of my bank account? And that is how to do cash flow. So hopefully that gives you a little bit behind that. Now, what can we do to help with the cash flow? Late payments are tough, so they're a big thing, and a lot of firms, they just won't chase them because they feel it have a negative impact on the customer relationship. So take practical steps to stay in control of your payments by making sure that your payment terms are clear. If not, it can lead to delays. And think about those payment terms. If I'm first starting out, don't offer 90 days payment terms, probably not. You know, do I want 14 days? Do I want cash on delivery? So really think about that, and don't be afraid to get those funds. If you've delivered and it's right for that to be paid for, then you get paid. Make sure that you've got legal requirements to meet your terms. So in your payment terms, your invoice, whatever, make sure there's something in there that says when they would pay, and effectively then you can, you know, chase it up. In some instances, and I don't think this is always needed, you can place an incentive on Swift payments with a small discount to encourage prompt payment. But again, it just really depends on your business. Customers, so creditworthiness. So if you accept a large order, and I would encourage you to try to make sure your business is not over reliant upon one client, because this can be a big issue if something happens. So when we talk about having, you know, more than one type of revenue, the same for customers. So ideally you would have several customers and you would be over reliant completely on, like if Ronk had one landlord, you know, and that landlord decides to come out of the game, retire, whatever, suddenly she's lost all her properties and she's got to start making new relationships. So if you accept large orders, make sure that you're able to reassure yourself that they're able to pay. A lot of information on company's house, on businesses, if you're selling B2B, on customers, just get cash and delivery. Get cash up front if you can. And be careful of back-to-back payments where you're effectively, they're not paying their invoice and you're giving them more stock. So just be really mindful of that. There is some information on the NatWest website about thinking about your supply chain. So have a look at that. We've talked about being efficient. So it's wise to manage your stock and inventory effectively. Overstocking eats up cash, but you don't want to run out of stock either, because people get frustrated if they can't buy what you've promised, or they don't, you know, they're delayed in delivery. If you've large capital payments to make or your day-to-day costs are high, try to finance the company without putting pressure on your cash flow. Finance is difficult. It is difficult at the beginning because you've no track record or reputation. So the better way to finance is personal finance, is, you know, being able to maybe raise equity, loans, overdrafts, things like that personally, just to get your business going. You invest in your business, an investor's going to want to see that before they invest in your business. If you go to an investor and say, I'm not going to put a penny in and I'm not going to, you know, I can't support myself monthly income wise, you know, from the beginning, then they'd probably wonder about how committed that you might be, and therefore why should they put their money in if you're not putting your money in? So there does need to be an element of investment into your own business. As you grow, then, you know, things like leasing equipment rather than buying it, yes, it is dearer, but it's that monthly cash flow again. So instead of committed to like 50,000 for, you know, some manufacturing equipment, if you can put that where it's costing your business £500 a month, it's only £2,500 this year, you know. So it's just the little things that will then, as your revenue's coming in time, as we grow, then we can think about not being funded. But most businesses, if I'm honest, do fund, because funding allows for growth. So by not, you can take funding, which means funding you've not got, which means you can grow your business. So if you're beating the cost of, you know, equipment because your yields are better than, you know, the interest rates, then it's worthwhile thinking about that investment into your business. As far as investing should bring revenue, and everything you do really should be bringing revenue. So you can, you know, just think about that. Cash reserves. So as well as standard loans, there are some other options that you can use. Now, asset finance, we've just talked about, spreading the cost of your investments over a longer period of time. Invoice finance. So if you invoice, then you can release cash from your unpaid invoices. So again, it does cost, but if you're suffering because of late payments, then guess what? They'll chase your payments, and it could speed up the process of getting cash out of your account. So again, more information on the website, you can look at that type of stuff, but again, you know, it's there. Once you've built up a cash reserve, keep a portion of it for an emergency fund. You just never know when you're going to need that. Contingent plans, we've talked about that from the beginning, but however you finance your business, it is important to have a backup plan in place. Small businesses rely on access to funds and availability of cash, so an unexpected payment can quickly drain your business. Don't invest everything you've got in the business. Don't put all your personal stuff on the line, because if it fails, you've cost yourself an awful lot. However, obviously we do need to make some investment. Consider spreading your payments, we've talked about, and at some point you might consider putting an overdraft in place for emergencies. Even if you don't use it, it could give you peace of mind. Cash is probably, I think you said, Ronka, didn't you? I think I've forgotten how you use the words, but you said like it's causing more stress or words to that effect. And that is what I see. So most of my conversations with business customers is around cash, and the stress that causes. So effectively, it is quite important that we get it right. So we've identified any gaps in your cash flow. So that's understanding your 12 months, helping you to manage your cash flow, where to get more support on your cash flow. So there's loads of free resources. Your own bank probably will have it as well as ours. And then as a result, hopefully you feel more confident about the tools you can use to support your business and feel more informed about the cash flow position of your business. And it'll all be unique. So I don't know if that's made you more confident, if anyone wants to shout out, but I hope that it's moved you up just that little bit, confident wise on, being able to sort of look at this stuff. So again, you can put it in the chat if you want, but to your own purposes, as that just sort of helped you. And if you do still need more, there's loads of free resources. So I'm going to pass over now to Cheryl, because Cheryl knows more about the next slide than I do. So I'll pause and take a drink and let Cheryl take over, and I'll move the slides for you, Cheryl.
Lovely, thanks, Maddie. I was actually just going to come back to you because there is a question in the chat that links to cash flow and the term, so I'll let you take a sip of water because it might just be perfect to answer that first before we move over. So the question is, are there minimum maximum payment term dates that you would recommend for a more stable cash flow? I guess it would probably depend on the individual type of business, but I don't know if you've got any experience from the customers that you work with, Maddie.
I think it would depend. If we're talking about payment terms to customers, which I'm not getting that feeling right. If it's to customers, so it's not the invoice finance or the other things, but if it's to customers, it really depends for me on what you're delivering and when they're getting paid. So if you're doing business to customer, so directly to consumer, I would think you would pay in advance. You wouldn't order a dress from Debenhams and expect to pay if you liked it. You'd pay immediately, then you get it, and then they issue the refund. And by the way, now they do charge you a certain amount for posting it back, that they never used to do. So it's really thinking about what you're providing. And I would say keep your payment terms as low as you possibly can. So instant, or because that all adds to cash flow. So if you're providing something, the quicker you can get paid, the quicker that adds to cash flow. When it comes to the other side, paying the banks, the finance companies, etc., the longest term, because if you've got no early repayment charges, which is the case on a lot of things, or you've got early repayment charges at certain statures, the longer you keep your terms out, the less you pay per month, and therefore the more cash flow. And that for me is in the early stages or the sort of first few years of a business, that's probably what I'd say is a thing. Ronka, you've got your hand up.
It was we're not doing the Q&A now for this, are we? Because it was just a question about something completely different to what we're talking about now.
All right, well, let's finish these slides then, unless you think there's any more questions in the chat, Cheryl, and then we'll come on to that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't see any more in the chat, Robert. I don't know if you can see any more in the chat relating to cash flow.
No, go ahead, Cheryl.
Perfect. So Maddie, if you could just move on to the next slide, please. So we've got the QR codes. So it's great to be with you all today. I just wanted to highlight a tool that we have at NatWest that is open to everyone, regardless of if you bank with us or not. It is our NatWest Accelerator app, which you can download from the App Store or Google Play. And it is a free resource for businesses, entrepreneurs, those starting up in their journey or scaling on their journey. And it's designed to give you access to content, tools and events wherever you are within the UK. It has tailored learning content. So if you're at the very start of your journey, there's something there for you to help you progress to the next stage in your business. There's also a community that you can connect with peers and like-minded individuals, because we all know that when you're setting up a business, it can be really lonely, and the questions you might not know the answers for, and that's absolutely fine. But here you'll have a community of businesses where you can connect with and ask those questions. Maddie also talked about co-working spaces. So at NatWest we offer co-working space for free, so you need to be a member of the app to get access to that. But we've got 12 hubs across the UK where you can obviously book co-working space, attend our events, and just get access to expertise and experts when you probably need it most. So if you haven't already, and I don't mean to make this a sales pitch, but it's open to both bank customers for NatWest and non-NatWest customers, please do take time to sign up to the community and see how we can support you on your journey. We do it through partnerships like the Open University, but this is a free. Oh, sorry, did someone have a question there? Oh, okay. So please do download the app and have a look, and it'd be great to connect and meet you in our community. And if you do need access for a meeting space, etc., one of our 12 hubs across the UK would be happy to accommodate that. You can also get access to mentors, and we work with an organisation called Digital Boost, and I think the best analogy I can give for Digital Boost is it's Tinder for business. So if you need access to expertise and you need access to a mentor in a specialised subject, then please do check out the mentoring resources, which you can log on direct to the Digital Boost website, or you can access through the NatWest Accelerator app, which will pop you out to Digital Boost, where you can sign up, get access to an expert. So it could be Maddie, it could be me on business strategy, but also could be someone from a lawyer firm, real estate, PwC. There's lots of different organisations out there where you can get access to support for free, and you can get access as many times as you like, so there's no restriction. But we just wanted to share those tools with you, because sometimes it's a case of you don't know what you don't know, and we just wanted to highlight the free resources that are available to support you on your business journey, whatever stage you're at. And we'd be delighted to see you either via Digital Boost or within our community. So it would have been remiss of me not to share those resources with you. So Robert, I'll hand back over to you unless there's any questions relating to the NatWest content, or we can just, if there's any questions in general to the session and the fund.
Thanks, Cheryl. And for those of you listening, feel free to pop a question in the chat or raise your hand. Ronke, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I was just going to ask about if NatWest had if they help new businesses get like business bank accounts, for instance, because I'm finding it very difficult, because I've got very good credit. I got my business plan, everything done really well, and whenever I apply for a high street, so I've got 2 business bank accounts, but they're online ones. Whenever I apply for like a Barclays or a Lloyd's, they never give it to me. I don't know whether that's because I'm only 7 months old, because now there is trade history, right? So I provide my pipeline, which has got nearly 75 grand in it. I've been trading for 7 months and made some money. So you'd think that a high street bank would give you a business account, but I'm struggling with that. I don't know if you had any
No, you should be absolutely fine. I mean, everyone has a right to a bank account. You're right, we do quite a lot of checks. I mean, you'll have heard of some of the news with some of the online bankers I won't mention specifically. So we do our due diligence ahead of opening a bank account, unlike some of our competitors who would open a bank account quickly and then do the due diligence
after, yeah.
So we do not do that as yet. Whether we'll change that, I'm not sure, because we don't want to be in the news for all the wrong reasons. But however, yeah, absolutely, we are available for startups, and we would support that journey. So all that information would be on our web pages.
Do NatWest do client accounts? Because I can't. I've got a client account already. I use CalMoney, but if I am going to go with a high street bank, it would need to be a business account and a client account, because as you know, lettings money needs to go into a client account, which is ring fenced, because I've got the client money protection. Does NatWest do that as well?
Yeah, we do, and we provide the client money's letters that you'd need and all that kind of stuff. So the best thing would probably be to get your basic bank account open, and then off the back of that, then do your client account. But yeah, we do all of that.
Good, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm not seeing any questions come through the chat, so I'll just say thank you, Maddie, for your take on the cash flow. I think I learned a lot there, and I like the idea around incentivizing prompt payment. Just to bring it full circle to the application for the grant funding for the Open Business Creators Fund for Women, part of that application is using the Validate tool to create a 12-month cash flow that looks a lot like what Maddie presented there. And what the people evaluating the entries to the fund are looking for, it's just that you have understood that task. They're not looking for your business to be incredibly profitable in that initial 12-month periods or whatever 12-month period you reflect, but just that you have understood this process of thinking about what the relevant costs are for you, thinking about the seasonality in your potential revenue, and reflecting that appropriately. So I hope that's helpful to people applying.
I think, like, to be profitable in your first year, you're doing really well. Like, it's not the norm. So absolutely, I think, like, for your investors, and certainly if I'm looking at cash flow, it's about being realistic. And I think it's better to be realistic and honest, because otherwise your relationship with those investors could well be tarnished in 12 months' time. So yeah, it is like, really being realistic. And you could have your own. If you don't have your own glass ceilings, then you sort of miss some, I suppose, some drive, some focus. You want to have those, but they're probably more personal. So when you're setting it for investors, I would say be more realistic. When you're setting it for yourself, be kind of higher than what you need, because you might not hit that glass ceiling, but you might get 70-80% of the way there. So you do need to have some high goals, but effectively for this purpose, it's being realistic.
Great, that's good advice. All right, we do have a question in the chat, Maddie, from Imogen. The question is, the business I'm setting up is going to be a general partnership, and we're finding it hard to find bank accounts that will accept us. Do you have any advice or suggestions as to why that may be?
There shouldn't be any reason. Partnership, sole trade, a limited company, I don't see there should be a reason. Have you got any take on this, Cheryl? Because you're out there sometimes with businesses, but I only get the ones that are kind of relationship managed. But how it works in the bank is people come in as a business owner, and then when they hit certain thresholds or debt thresholds, then they effectively would get a relationship manager. We're very lucky in that the NatWest sets that at a lower bar than our competitors. But I do it like this at home rather than in a face-to-face environment, so I can look after more clients, but I don't see them face-to-face. That's the role that I do. So my customers are Land's End to John O'Groats, and not necessarily local. So, but I do not see that there should be any difficulty with opening bank accounts.
As a
No,
partnership.
yeah, and I guess for those at the early stages of their journey, NatWest, and obviously there are other banks out there that offer similar services, but we have Metal, which is our online digital bank. So if you're starting up, but that one's specifically aimed at sole traders and limited companies, I will need to check the partnership status, but that is all done on your phone. And it's obviously guaranteed, but it's backed by NatWest, powered by NatWest, and you've got free accounting integration software with free agents. So if you're a NatWest customer or a Metal customer, you get access to all of those tools for free. And you know, Metal is ideal for those starting up in their early stages of their journey when setting up a business. But I would need to check the partnership question with Metal. But that is one option. But in terms of those, I guess, more established and looking at partnerships, I haven't seen any challenges with that. But it's hard to, you know, review something without having, I guess, more details.
All right, thanks, Cheryl. Imogen has just put a follow-up there. And then we have another question from Merrill. As a community interest company, would it be best to set up a business bank account or a community one?
The community one would potentially be the better option, because the bank charges would be, you know, would be potentially nothing. I don't know. I think they would be. So I think like the charges and structures would be different for those. So I would, yeah, you should set up the appropriate bank account. So you declare the appropriate bank account, which in my case would be community for that one.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, I think I will draw this session to a close. Thank you everyone for attending, and thanks to our presenters again. You know where to reach us, hopefully, at the Open Business Creators. I'll put the email in the chat here. We still have a couple of weeks until the deadline to apply for funding, and we're looking forward to learning about you and your businesses.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.